and do a... Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
We are live. Let's go to a countdown. Well, hello there, Mr. Duke Lowry.
Well, hello there, Rex Moncrief. What's happening, my friend?
Not too much. You know, I'm gonna have to redo that little countdown video. I'm pretty much tired of seeing those guys in our countdown video.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get something fresh and new there. It acted kind of weird, kind of glitchy. It seemed like.
Yeah, you know, they are kind of glitchy anyway, so. It is what it is. All right, so let's see. We're gonna. We've already got 8 people watching tonight. That didn't take long.
Holy shimoly!
Yeah. So I'm gonna say that we skip our little intros. Our names are underneath us anyway. So if you're watching, our names are kind of down below us type thing. Yeah, there we go. Let's just skip all the intros. I'm Rex. That's Duke. Okay. Let's dive right into it.
You're infamous. I'm not.
Well, we keep getting these names added to us, and that's a little hint as to what we're about to talk about, I suppose. But it's starting to get difficult to keep up with who we've been labeled this week.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. I mean, I got a dictionary. I can keep up with it.
Well, all right. So, obviously, you've got something odd behind you. So, what have you been up to, Mr. Lowry?
I've been shopping.
Really? And shopping for what?
I've been shopping. I have been looking to buy me a new ride.
Really? What kind of new ride are you trying to buy?
Well, I'm trying to buy a ride that will, appropriately represent my standing in Bossier Parish.
Really? Now, you sent me a picture of your ride, so let me see if I get this correct.
That's what I'm looking to get.
Is that what you're trying to get right there?
That's it. That's it.
I know the screen's not very big, but that looks like it says Zap Em on it, and maybe it's some kind of bug-killing machine? I mean, what's up with this?
Well, I need to know my role. I need to know where my standing is, know my place. Like, unfortunately, a lot of folks in Bossier don't know.
Oh, okay. And
so I just thought that would be appropriate.
Yeah, considering the nice new name tags we have this week, I think that might be appropriate. Shall we actually get into that, or shall we just discuss some results? Or
well, we'll explain why we got into that. I guess we probably ought to cover our last show just real quick, and because that has a little bit as to why I've had to go shopping for this new ride.
Yes, I would agree. Okay, so let's review last week. So, we played this a couple of times, and just to make somebody exceedingly happy, I've got to play this video again, and I'm going to continue to play it, I don't know, till like infinity.
Will Doug Rimmer consider increasing our gas taxes?
No, I'll consider it. I think that's one of the things that we should have done back in the 80s when the last time they passed it. They should have indexed it to inflation or something. But the bottom line is we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul, and Peter's broke.
They have also mentioned a 23 cent a gallon gas tax increase. You think that's way out of line?
I don't think it's way out of line. It's high. When it goes down 20 cents, if that's when we could do the tax. But we're going to look at all of it.
Well, I just love playing that video. So I just want to congratulate Doug Rimmer on winning the RSCC race. That's the Republican State Central Committee race for our district area. Congratulations, Doug, and congratulations on wanting to increase everybody's taxes while running as a Republican. It's just great.
And I'll congratulate my opponent, Allie Feaster-Smith. We'll see, I guess, whether she supports the gas tax as well, because I got a feeling that that is going to be an issue that's going to come forward here in the near future, and they will get a chance to weigh in on that issue.
Well, you know, maybe with your new Zap Mobile, I don't think that's the most fuel efficient thing, so that could like cut into your business profits once, you know, when they want to raise the gas tax 23 cents a gallon, or at least they don't have any problem with raising the gas tax 23 cents a gallon.
Well, man, I just don't know what to say. You know, some people don't like us pointing out things that are going on. They don't like being pointed out on obvious statements like that. In fact, I think Ann Price, we mentioned that in the last show about threats that were made to her regarding the legislative auditor, and that didn't actually turn out to be accurate, and we pointed that out.
Yes,
and
we did.
As a result of those things, we're being labeled more names.
Yeah, so I just pulled up that screenshot, and this is Doug Rimmer, who is chairman of the Bossier Parish Republican Executive Committee, now member of the State Central Committee. He's also a Bossier Parish police juror, and he was a former, correct me if I'm wrong, Duke, Caddo Parish school board member. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was his first political foray, I believe, was a Caddo Parish school board member. And don't forget, he's now a self-appointed library board member.
Oh, that's right. And he's also the guy that likes, you know, kicking sweet little old ladies off the library board. Great resume. So he also, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, but you and I are the bad guys for asking questions on behalf of the public that a lot of the public, you know, won't or can't or, you know, weigh into. And we're doing that, but yet you and I are the bad guys.
Well, here's what happens is whenever we point out and use, again, the tax increase audio that I'm running is from a Keel interview. It's not like I said it. Doug said it. I mean, own up to it, Doug. Come on. But you're right. Whenever that happens, I'm adding some little screenshots here. You know, it seems like you get threatened, right? So Jason Wayne says hello, Gina says hi, and so we'll plug some of those. Let me get Rimmer's text back up, and then I'll move back into it. So what happens is, when we use their quotes and just point them out, you get threats like this. So Doug Rimmer is literally, and we went over this last week, so quick review, he's literally, he just flat out lied. He said they've had a request from the legislative auditor which requires old minutes as it involves the last 3 years' actions. Of course, I called the legislative auditor's office. It's not true. Danny Perdue, who's the treasurer for the PEC, called the legislative auditor's office. There are some reports that he's going to have to file. All the information was given to him. Nothing was hidden. It's all right there in a spreadsheet and everything else. So then as Ann and Doug's conversation went on, he literally threatens, he says, this is Doug Rimmer saying, I'm concerned that this failure to turn over records will get into the press with negative speculation and conjecture. He's literally threatening Ann, and does that even further by telling her, don't further tarnish your record of service. If you're going to withhold minutes, blah, 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 just say so. We will then pursue other avenues that won't bode well for you and your cohorts. So we started out as cohorts.
Cohorts. Remember that word. Cohorts.
Cohorts. Yes. And again, not our words. We're just showing you the words of our local elected benevolent overlords.
So, wait a minute. We got to start a list. Contrarians.
Yes.
Cohorts,
Cohorts.
and we have a new label.
Yes, we do. Here it is. So this is what Doug Rimmer posted on Allie Feaster Smith, apparently during Saturday's election and all that, before the returns were completely in. And notice, let's see here, now, where are we at? Oh, now we're not only cohorts, we're cockroaches.
So, I can understand being a little agitated that you're being called to task for things, and activities in the public. Questions are being, and being agitated about it. I can get that.
Mm-hmm.
But cockroaches, and apparently Allie Feaster Smith agreed because she liked it as well too. So, and I haven't saw any body on. So we described kind of cohorts the last show. I haven't seen anyone retract from that team of cohorts. I haven't seen any retraction from them, or while privately I've gotten some apologies from some folks, on behalf of a group. But have you seen anything?
No, nobody certainly apologized to me, but yeah, whatever.
Have we called him a cockroach or any of those people that?
No, I certainly wouldn't call him a cockroach. And let me point this out. Notice he did it with only a friends of friends share. If I were going to call you a cockroach, Doug, I would do it like I do everything else, publicly. As a matter of fact, I might just show up at a police jury meeting one day, and I'm not going to call you a cockroach because that's actually kind of childish. But if I were going to do something like that, which I might or might not, I just do it in public, Doug.
Well, let's put this aside and let's move on. Somebody messaged me and said, I ought not say anything. We ought not say anything. We ought to just let this go. We ought to leave it alone.
Yeah, well, maybe so. Look, here's the truth, is that even though, of course, I didn't win the election, Rimmer beat me basically, nearly 2-1. Hey, that's part of it. You're a politician. No, I'm not. But what it did do was allow Rimmer to make some comments and show again his true colors. So first, he preaches to the sweet little old library lady as their cannoner after 15 or 20 years of service that he only follows the rules, which we know is not true. And then we go to cohorts. He wants to raise your gas taxes. Now we're cockroaches. I mean, the guy's all over the map. And he doesn't do this publicly. So.
Well, I mean, Rex, look, Allie Feaster, she worked hard. She got the votes. A lot of her folks worked hard to get votes for her, and that's fine. But, I mean, I congratulate her. She worked hard. She's deserving in that. But I think a mistake here was made, and I think it raises a larger issue. And I want to get off of talking about those two individually, and I want to really move it to a more serious note and change the discussion. You know what? If either one of those individuals called me today, as hurtful as that is, if either of those individuals called me today and they needed help or wanted something, I would get in my car and I'd go do it.
Yeah.
We're supposed to have the same interests in mind, in which what you and I are trying to do is we're trying to raise awareness and the issues in our parish, as well as ask questions about things that don't seem right. Now, if that makes you a bad guy and that makes me a bad guy, you know what? I'm willing to wear that banner. I'm fine with it.
Well, look, when we started Bossier Watch, we really didn't start this to make any friends. We literally started this to show people what was going on in the local government with our local officials, and starting at, what I consider kind of the basic level, which is like the Republican PEC, State Central Committee, which both are important to the Republican Party, and starting with the Cypress District. Of course, I've been on that a lot. The Bossier Parish Police Jury, the City Council. As we go through these things and meetings happen and things are said, things are done, which should be transparent and in the public. That's what we're trying to do here and show. It's not to personally attack anybody. I mean, I think the worst thing I called Rimmer was a liar and a liberal Republican, both of which are easy to back up. We've shown the proof here. Doesn't mean I'm the perfect person, but I'm not the one sitting in the office.
Yeah, no, you have never claimed to be perfect, and I don't claim to be perfect. I have made mistakes over time, but because we are doing what we are doing, therefore we are cockroaches, cohorts, and I'm sure we're quite a few other names. But the subject matter of the show tonight, and you know, I have to thank Doug Rimmer, you know, and Allie, because they both opened the door for an opportunity to raise a subject that has really been personal to me for a long time. And it's something that I've seen happening in Bossier for a while. And it's something that I know a lot of people, they don't really talk about it a whole lot, but they know it's true as well as I, and it's important, and it deserves a serious discussion. And I think the time for that discussion is now. And we're going to go ahead and move right on into it. And at this point, we're going to kind of put Doug Rimmer and Allie behind us, and we're going to jump right off in it.
Sounds good to me. Move forward.
So I want to ask a question to our audience. Why do churches need to be involved in politics, and why are they trying to control politics locally?
Very good question. Let's see if I can get this on the screen. All right. So your question is, and the question to the audience is, and look, folks, we got lots of comments coming in so far. So go ahead and comment away if you want to answer this comment. Yeah, Gina, you're right. The calling names deal, that's getting old. So let's move into why do churches need to be involved in politics, and why are they trying to control politics locally? That's a very good question, Duke.
You know, I think there's a lot of reasons, some good, some bad.
Right.
But you know, the most common reason is that they say, a lot of folks say that, well, it was the founders' intent that, you know, Christians should be in politics, and we should be, you know, just as deeply involved in as we should. Then you've got another side of the equation that says separation of church and state. They make that argument. And we see in Bossier something, I don't know, a little different. Yeah. Do you see something a little different in Bossier?
Well, yeah, and you mentioned earlier that, you know, it's something a lot of people know what's going on, but I'll go even a step further. This is a subject that a lot of people, especially people involved or even semi or partially involved in politics, it's definitely something that people talk about amongst themselves, but they're afraid to talk about it too publicly because, again, you know, what we call the good old boys network, you have to be careful of what you say in Bossier because you'll upset the apple cart, and the oxen don't like the apple cart to be upset.
Yeah, and you know, when you and I mean, we both know this was not originally where or what our show was going to be tonight. This wasn't it. And I kind of steered this away from our original content to the subject, and I'll take responsibility for that. And what really struck me was I saw an email from my kid's school today, mm-hmm. and the quote.
Do I need to share your screen?
The Philippians quote.
Okay, let me put it up there. Hold on, let's see. You got to keep me on the ball here. Philippians, where did you go? There it is. All right, got it.
Do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look only to his own interests, but also to the interest of others. Everyone can read that.
Right.
That struck me because I can understand why we're being called cohorts. I can understand why we're being called cockroaches. I can understand all the things, but I wonder if folks think that us doing what we're doing, do you think that you're making friends by doing this?
I know that here's the thing. I'm not making friends, and I have no aspirations of making friends with the people that we're calling out. You know, we're calling people out for a reason.
Yeah,
And it's,
I can tell you that I am losing friends or people who I call friends. I'm losing them. One, for associating with you. Two, for us doing what we're doing.
yeah, and the 180 degree from that's absolutely true. Here's the challenge, though. All right, here's the hypocrisy of it. There are a lot of politicians, and you hear this all the time, all across the board from career politicians. They call everybody their friend. Everybody. Even when, and Duke, you know this is true just as well as I do, and you politicians out there know exactly who I'm referring to. When you get in the backroom meetings with them during campaigns, all of a sudden that word friends goes right out the window. That's only a public facade. It's completely hypocritical. So when you hear a politician come out and tell their political, let's just call it enemy, well, my friend so-and-so, they're really patting them on the back with the knife right there in their fingers.
Yeah, and the reason that quote, that scripture jumped out at me, and is that I kind of view what we're doing, we're not benefiting from this. In fact, we're just putting big old targets on our back. Mm-hmm. And if people didn't care and were not interested in the subject matter that we're talking about, we wouldn't see the quantity of views that we see for our videos on the backside that the public doesn't see. If you look, just because you see maybe 10 likes, that doesn't mean that people are not following and people are not interested. A lot of people can't speak up and say what we're saying, and a lot of people are scared to speak up and say what we're saying.
That's correct.
Because you have the fortitude to speak up and say, regardless of consequence, I respect you for that. Right. And in my view, this quote is what we're doing.
Absolutely. And we've got a comment here, so I put it on the screen. And the comment is, well, they were your real friends. True friends, this is the important part of this comment. True friends can agree to disagree. Look, the truth is, Duke, while you and I see a lot of things eye to eye, there are a few things that we don't completely agree on. But that doesn't mean that you and I try to stab each other in the back. All right?
Absolutely.
There's a key difference in that. There's a line that you don't cross. The problem that we have is not every politician, but the vast majority of politicians are absolutely two-faced hypocrites. They just are. It's the way it is. You get involved with a campaign and help do things behind the scenes, trust me, you'll find out.
So, politics today, and the original question, why do churches need to be involved in politics? And why are they trying to control politics locally? Everybody can either acknowledge it to be a legitimate question, or they can ignore it and deny that it's a legitimate question. But I'm telling you that it is legitimate. It is a fact. It is happening.
All right, so let's do a little bit of clarity here, and let's kind of refine this a little bit. So I'm going to ask you the questions, which I generally kind of already know the answer to, but just to facilitate the conversation. So are you saying that some of the churches, instead of preaching a sermon on Jesus, the Bible, that they're getting up and politicking from the pulpit, or what are you kind of kind of clarify for the people, we're at 20-something simultaneous viewers right now, kind of clarify, when you say control the politics, what you generally mean by that.
Well, what I'm generally meaning is groups from particular churches organizing and attempting to control almost all of the political bodies.
Okay. And you've
Why?
got some personal experience with this, right?
Well, I do have some personal experience, but I don't want this to be about me at all, you know, because somebody will say, "Oh, well, you're just a sore loser. That's the only reason you were." And no, this is graded on me for a long time, and I will say this about me. In fact, the first time I ran for state representative, I moved out of the church that I was in because it was in the district that I was in, and this is just for me individually a moral issue. I did not want to ever have to face the question that I used my faith for political gain. So I moved to a church outside of my district. That way, I will never have that question of whether it's morally right or whether it's morally wrong. Now, right there, somebody would be ready to jump on me and pounce on me and say, oh, well, the founders said that, no, that's not the way it is. You should be willing to what have you. But let me see if I can find it here. Took the liberty of finding a quote from George Washington. And I may butcher it here just a little bit. And then he made a distinction. I'll just read this. It actually came from the Heritage Foundation. The founder's support for blending religion and politics was based on the following. Morality is necessary for Republican government. Religion is necessary for morality. Therefore, religion is necessary for a Republican government. And here was the quote. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, Washington wrote in his farewell address, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens. Oh, you got it right there. How about that?
Yeah.
So he was making a distinction that, to have a Republican government, that you had to have morality. It was one of the tenets of having a government, and without having morality, the distinction was made that there had to be a method to promote morality in its citizenry. That was the church.
Right.
But today we find the church trying to take over government, in my opinion. And I don't think that was the intent.
I would agree. And, again, like I asked you and you replied earlier, it's not necessarily that the preachers in, some of these churches are directly politicking from the pulpit. It's kind of this, I hate to call it a shadow campaign, but it's kind of like this shadow campaign to help steer the political happenings in the area. And again, I would argue in a lot of cases it's actually hypocritical because they claim to, not get into the political side of things while from one side of their mouth, while from the other side they're absolutely doing it.
How does someone, if they need to go to their church with an issue, and I'm hesitant to give what if you have someone who is pregnant and they're by themselves, they really don't know what to do, and they're considering, wanting to talk to somebody about whether to have an abortion or whether not to have an abortion. And they've got no one to talk to, and they're thinking, you know what, I need to go talk to the church. But before they go talk to the church, they have to consider, well, is that church political? Are they going to give me a biblical, or are they going to give me a political advice?
Right.
How are they going to counsel me? If we as a church are politicking for, say, Republican values, what's to prevent the Democrats? Now, the flip side of that from arguing, say, having Planned Parenthood at a particular church and counseling someone that way. Churches need to be teaching morality.
Right.
They don't need to be teaching politics, and they don't need to be promoting politics. And we now have organized politics.
Yes, we do. And I'm going to, Jason, I see your comment there. I'm going to add Ed's comment first. And this brings up a good point. So Ed Burchett says legally they can lose their nonprofit standing. Of course, you're absolutely correct, Ed. I would argue that, you know, if God called me to be a preacher, God forbid, I wouldn't want to have nonprofit status. Then I don't have to worry about it. Just remove the tax-exempt status. Now, I'm not saying that that's what churches should do, but because some of the morality in our country and some of the political happenings get so intertwined, and sometimes people lose sight of the big picture, you know, I would argue, and I would certainly argue, Duke, that some of these churches that are doing these shadow political campaigns, maybe they don't need to have tax-exempt status. I don't know. Ed's got a good point there.
It would appear to me the measure of you being conservative or not depends on which church you go to.
Oh, that's definitely true. So I'm going to put Jason's comment up here. If he says if local churches use their power for real conservative political gain, then every school in Northwest Louisiana would openly condone Christ-rooted Bible study during school hours on campus. Local churches may get involved, but it ain't to press bold American biblical beliefs. And there's some truth to that. If they would, you know, he's got a point. If they're going to do this, maybe if they focus their efforts a little better, if they didn't have to worry about tax-exempt status, maybe they would get something accomplished. But I would argue that they're not completely sincere about the teachings of Christ, while at the same time, some of these orchestrated political happenings are going on.
You know, and to that point, I think in the name of religious liberty, there was some executive order that was signed by Donald Trump at some point in this year. I'm not, you can't hold me to that. Maybe somebody that's watching can chime in and confirm that or not. But I think making it a little easier for churches to become more political without being, held. And I'm not saying that churches, shouldn't try to promote morality in government or good people. But when you've got churches trying to take over wholesale politics, you have a problem.
Yeah, and look, the truth is, let me just chime this in. My wife says, in her opinion, she thinks that politics should not be in churches. I don't disagree with you, honey. I actually agree with you to some extent on that, of course. But let me throw this curveball out there. So, we've had a lot of church shootings, in the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years or whatever in the U.S. And so that brings to mind the question of, well, should you be allowed to carry in a church? Everybody knows my answer. I'm pretty crystal clear on my Second Amendment stance. But because of politics, until the Jindal administration, you couldn't carry in a church in the state of Louisiana. Period. Full stop. And under the Jindal administration, you at least were able to get permission of the pastor or the board of the church, but you still had to get their permission, have a concealed carry permit, I believe, and take X amount of training and all this. So if you're talking about just the security of the church, putting all other politics aside, you still have to involve political talk in the church because you have to get around the restrictions on our God-given rights protected under the Second Amendment, but you got to get around the state restrictions on that. And so, not trying to throw too much of a curveball, but sometimes it's hard. There's a fine line between separating politics and church. I think what you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, Duke, what you're talking about is actively trying to sway politics. Is that kind of what you're saying, or expand on that maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it goes back to some time ago. I can remember that there was a concerted effort in the direction to start moving the churches and make them political around here. You know, there is a definitive time, and I would submit, you will never catch me do it. It'll never happen. But if you're a politician and you're going to a church that's not normally your church, and you're out shaking hands just so that your face can be seen, I got a problem with that. But a very prominent politician, I had this discussion with him, and he told me, he said, but Duke, you know, all of the Christian community needs to know that he's a Christian. How else would they know?
What?
I kid you not, a very prominent
Well,
politician.
I'm just going to tease this out there without too many details. You know, there are a whole lot of people, even those not heavily involved in politics, that remember a, let's just say, relatively recent story of some folks literally being kicked out of a church. And it was primarily politically driven. And it's a shame that that type of thing happens. Now, fortunately, we live in an area that has an abundance of churches. So if, you know, if you're going to one church and the people in the church don't seem to be on the same spiritual wavelength that you're on, then absolutely there are plenty of other places that you can go to worship, and worship with a body of Christ that you feel more comfortable with. But this is, yeah, it's just crazy. I'm going to switch our screen around because Cara just put up a comment. So let's see. Aha. So Cara says, it hasn't been about supporting good candidates. It's been about supporting only their candidate. If you don't go to their church, are you worthy? That is an excellent point.
Yeah, and that's today. I was here fixing to pull it up. I had someone message me today, and that is exactly the conversation that we had. And they said it's basically a popularity contest now.
Wow.
Elections now are not about merit; they're about popularity.
Yes.
And with that said, the negative, and this cockroach comment, the negatives, I would argue that you can go back over the last, let's say, 10 years. And over the last 10 years, in almost every political campaign, and you can look at the negative attacks, and there's a common denominator to the negative attack and the candidates.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know, maybe our audience would like us to put that together for them and show it to them.
Well,
Maybe
and I just put up the Cockroaches and Cohorts comment, and Cara, thank you so much for that, your comment, because that is just a great, you know, counterbalance sitting there where, you know, Duke, your wife says, if you don't go to their church, are you worthy? And look at the statement. Hopefully we beat all the cockroaches and their cohorts. I mean, well, that says it right there.
To the people who supported, you know, to that issue that support in the parish, if you don't support their person, you're a cockroach. Is that what that's saying?
Yeah, that's the way I read it. I mean, we're not making up the words there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a screenshot of Cara's comment. That's great. All right, so where do we go from here? I mean, is there a way to fix this? I mean, you know, we're going to keep shining a light on what's going on, and as people send us information, and again, people can email BossierWatch@gmail.com or make you a free Proton Mail account and email us at BossierWatch@ProtonMail with no identifying information, and then it's completely anonymous. That's actually giving us some good information and stuff to look into already. So,
I think that,
where do we go from here?
I think the takeaway from this is if us pointing out people making bad decisions is wrong, I'm willing to own that. And at the end of my days, I'll stand before the good Lord and I'll answer for it. But I'm just going to go to salt and light.
Amen.
If it loses it, you got to crush it underfoot. And that's where I'm going to go.
Absolutely. Well, we'll kind of start winding it down from here. I want to share a couple other comments. So Miss Ann just commented and said, they do not care about which candidate is most qualified or has great endorsements. You just have to be born in Bossier and be a member of their church. That's a great comment. Segue off of what Cara just said.
But it's not entirely accurate. I mean, you can be, I was born in Bossier.
Right.
So it's not an,
you're 50-50 on this deal, though. You're 50-50 on this deal, though. See, that's the problem. And then Gina just said again, there are a lot of churches nowadays just out for money and not about the Word of God. You're right, honey. A lot of this is about money, or at least power and influence. Let's put it that way. All right, Duke, do you have some more you want to share, or do we want to kind of start wrapping it up, or what's the...
No, we'll end it with there, but just because I've got a sneaking suspicion we're going to get some feedback on this video, and you know what? That's fine. I got a feeling we're going to talk about this subject more, and because it's happening. A lot of people don't want us talking about the subject, but we're going to, and we're going to go there, and there's going to be more of this to follow.
Amen. Preach on, brother. Let's wrap it up.
Have a good night.
You too. Talk to you later.